All right, now let's take a look at one more example where we have to solve an equation that involves two radicals. So the first thing we want to do when we have an equation like this with two radicals in it, that first step is going to be to isolate our more complicated radical. So in this case, our more complicated radical is the square root of 2x plus 1. So we want to get this on one side of our equation by itself. So to do that, we'll just add the square root of x to each side. And now we have the equation. The square root of 2x plus 1 is equal to the square root of x plus 1. And now that we have this more complicated square root isolated, we can square both sides to get rid of that square root. So we'll go ahead and do that. We will square both sides of our equation. And now, after doing that, we have on the left side just this 2x plus 1. And now on the right side, you can either use the FOIL method or the fact that a plus b squared is equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. You can use one of those. And on the right side, you'll see that you get x plus 2 root x plus 1. All right, and now we have an equation that only involves one radical. All right, so now what we can do, we want to isolate this radical term. So we can isolate this entire 2 root x. All right, so to do that, we'll subtract x and subtract 1 from both sides. So now we just have that x is equal to 2 root x. So now from here, we isolated this 2 root x. Now we can square both sides. Squaring both sides, I'll still get rid of this radical. We have the square root. So by squaring both sides, that now gives us x squared plus, x squared is equal to 4x. So we have x squared is equal to 4x, and now we have a quadratic equation that we can solve. So we want to set it equal to 0. So we have x squared now minus 4x is equal to 0. And now we have this, so we can solve this either using our quadratic formula, or we can just factor it. So factoring would probably be the easier way to go about it. So let's do that. We'll factor here, and after factoring, we will get, and I'm going to just move this over here, x times x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now using that zero product property, we can solve for what x is going to be equal to. So here, x either has to be equal to 0, or x is going to be equal to positive 4. So we have our two solutions. Now all that's left to do is plug them in and check to see if they hold up when we plug them in for x. So let's take a look at the first one. So we'll make this our check underneath. So first we have the square root now of 2 times 0 plus 1 minus the square root of 0 is equal to 1. So this ends up being the square root of 1 is equal to 1. And that's 1 is equal to 1, so that holds true. Next, we have to plug in that this x is equal to 4. So, same thing. Now we have the square root of 2 times 4 plus 1 plus the square root of 4 is minus the square root of 4 is equal to 1. So this simplifies underneath the radical to 9. So the square root of 9, well, that's equal to 3. And the square root of 4 is equal to 2. So it says 3 minus 2 is equal to 1, or 1 is equal to 1. So that also holds true. So we can accept both of these solutions. We do not have any extraneous solutions here. So our x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 4.